Adam Nicholas thought the ink on the divorce papers was his trophy. He thought stripping his wife of every penny, taking the company, and kicking her out of their Manhattan penthouse made him a winner. He stood on the balcony of his victory, laughing with a scotch in hand, telling the world how he had crushed the woman who supported him for a decade. But Adam made a fatal calculation. He forgot that while a husband can become an ex-husband, a father is forever. And he was about to learn that the man he called a washed-up old gardener held the keys to a kingdom Adam was only renting. This is the story of arrogance, betrayal, and the most satisfying ruin you will ever witness. The mahogany doors of the Southern District Family Court closed with a heavy, final thud, sealing the fate of a 10-year marriage. To Adam Nicholas, that sound wasn't a tragedy. It was the starting gun for the rest of his life. He adjusted the cuffs of his bespoke Brioni suit, checking the reflection in the polished brass of the door handle. He looked good. No, he looked victorious. At 42, Adam was the CEO of Nicholas Onyx, a logistics and shipping conglomerate that had just posted its third consecutive quarter of record profits. He had the jawline of a movie star, the bank account of a small nation, and as of 10 a.m. this morning, total freedom. "Arthur," Adam said, turning to his attorney, Arthur Claiborne, a man who charged $800 an hour to destroy lives. "Tell me I heard that right. The judge denied the equitable distribution motion?" Arthur smirked, sliding a thick file into his leather briefcase. "You heard correctly, Adam. The prenuptial agreement stands absolute. She gets the lump sum of $200,000, the 2018 Range Rover, and her personal effects. You keep the real estate portfolio, the stock options, the liquidity, and most importantly, full controlling interest in Nicholas Onyx." Adam let out a sharp, barking laugh. 200 grand. That's less than I spent on the company retreat in Aspen last month. He looked down the hallway. Anna was standing near the water fountain. She looked smaller than he remembered, wrapped in a beige trench coat that had seen better days, clutching a simple handbag. Her hair, usually kept in the immaculate chignon he demanded for gala appearances, was loose and slightly frizzy from the humid New York air. She was alone. Her lawyer, a court-appointed generic suit, because Adam had frozen their joint accounts the moment he filed, had already left. Adam felt a cruel urge to twist the knife. He walked over, the heels of his Italian shoes clicking rhythmically on the marble floor. "Anna," he said, his voice dripping with faux concern. She turned. Her eyes were red-rimmed but dry. She didn't look angry. She looked hollow. "Adam." "Look, I know this is tough," he said, stepping into a personal space, smelling the faint scent of lavender soap. Cheap soap. "But you have to admit, you brought this on yourself. You just couldn't keep up with the lifestyle. You were always quaint, and business requires a shark." "I supported you when you were selling drop-shipping courses out of a garage in Queens," Anna said softly. "I paid the rent. I bought your first suit." Adam waved a hand dismissively. "Ancient history. That was a loan, and the court says I've repaid it. $200,000 is a lot of money for a girl from Connecticut. Don't blow it all on therapy." He leaned in closer, dropping his voice to a whisper. "By the way, Sienna is moving into the penthouse on Friday. Try to have the rest of your boxes out by tomorrow noon. I don't want her seeing your clutter." Anna looked at him, searching his face for a shred of the man she had married. She saw nothing but polished greed. "You won, Adam," she whispered. "You got everything you wanted." "I always do," he grinned. "Goodbye, Anna." He turned on his heel and marched towards the exit, pulling out his phone. He dialed Sienna, his 24-year-old VP of marketing, a title she earned more through late-night meetings than actual competence. "Baby," Adam boomed into the phone, pushing through the revolving doors into the sunlight. "It's done. Total knockout. He didn't even touch the offshore accounts. Get the champagne on ice. We're celebrating." As Adam hailed a black car, he didn't look back at the courthouse. He didn't see Anna walk out a few minutes later. He didn't see the sleek, vintage 1960 Rolls-Royce Phantom waiting at the curb, a car far too expensive for a woman who had just lost everything. He didn't see the driver, a man named Thomas, who had served the Calloway family for 40 years, open the door with a bow. And he certainly didn't see Anna slide into the back seat, pick up the secure line phone, and say 3 words, "Take me home." The drive from Manhattan to Greenwich was usually a slog of traffic, but the interior of the Rolls-Royce was a silent sanctuary. Anna Calloway, she had mentally dropped the Nicholas the moment the gavel fell, watched the city skyline fade into the rear-view mirror. She felt a strange sensation. It wasn't grief. The grief had been burned out of her 2 years ago, when Adam stopped coming home for dinner, when he started criticizing her weight, her clothes, her lack of ambition. No, this feeling was relief. It was the feeling of a soldier finally being rotated off the front lines. The car wound its way through the iron gates of Blackwood Manor. Adam had only visited Blackwood twice in their entire marriage. Both times he had sneered at it. "It's a museum, Anna," he had said. "It smells like old books and dead money. We're new money. We're vibrant. This place is a mausoleum." Adam saw the peeling paint on the potting shed and the overgrown ivy and assumed poverty. He saw Anna's father, Harrison Calloway, driving a beaten-up Ford truck and wearing flannel shirts, and assumed the old man was barely scraping by on a dwindling inheritance. Adam, in his infinite arrogance, never bothered to look deeper. He never asked why the senators came to dinner on Tuesdays. He never asked why the land, hundreds of acres of prime Connecticut real estate, was never sold off to developers. The car stopped in front of the main house. Harrison Calloway was waiting on the porch. At 72, he was a man of steel and wire, his back straight, his eyes sharp blue behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was wearing his gardening trousers and holding a pair of shears. Anna stepped out. Her legs felt weak. Harrison didn't say a word. He simply walked down the steps, wrapped his daughter in a hug that felt like a fortress, and held her while she finally let out the sob she had been holding back in the courtroom. "It's over, Papa," she choked out. "He took it all." Harrison pulled back, brushing a stray hair from her face. His voice was gravel and honey. "He took what he could see, Anna. That is a very different thing from taking it all." They walked inside. The house was warm, filled with the smell of beeswax and burning oak. They sat in the library, a room lined floor to ceiling, with books that were older than the United States. Thomas brought tea. Harrison poured. "Did he say anything cruel?" Harrison asked, his tone mild, as if asking about the weather. Anna wrapped her hands around the porcelain cup. "He told me to have my boxes out by noon tomorrow, because Sienna is moving in. He mocked the settlement. He said I was quaint, and that business requires a shark." Harrison took a slow sip of his tea. A small, terrifying smile touched the corners of his mouth. "A shark," Harrison mused. "Interesting creature, the shark. Needs to keep moving to breathe. Very aggressive. But put a shark in fresh water, and it drowns." "He has the company, Papa," Anna said, her voice trembling. "Nicholas Onyx. We built that. My designs, my logistics planning. He scrubbed my name off everything. But the infrastructure is mine. He has the contracts with the shipping lanes. He has the brand." "He has the shell of the company," Harrison corrected gently. "He has the signage on the building and the lease on the warehouse. Tell me, Anna, in the last 10 years, did Adam ever once attend the board meetings of the holding group?" Anna frowned. "The Calloway Holding Group? No. You know he hates boring administrative work. He always signed the proxy forms and let you handle the family trust nonsense, as he called it. He said he was too busy being a visionary." Harrison stood up and walked to a heavy oak desk. He pulled out a leather-bound ledger. "Adam Nicholas is a man who reads headlines, not footnotes," Harrison said, opening the ledger. "When you two married, I wanted to help him. He had drive. He had charisma. So I facilitated his first major contracts. I introduced him to the suppliers. I know, Anna said. You vouched for him. I did more than vouch, Harrison said. I underwrote him. You see, Adam thinks he owns the supply chain. He doesn't. Nicholas Onyx is a logistics company, yes? It moves goods from point A to point B. Yes. But who owns the ships? Harrison asked softly. Anna blinked. We lease them. From a maritime consortium in Greece, Poseidon Logistics. And who owns the warehouses in New Jersey and California? A real estate trust. Gemini Properties. And who provides the insurance bonding that allows his trucks to legally operate on interstate highways? Liberty Surety, Anna listed automatically. She knew the books better than Adam did. Harrison closed the ledger with a soft snap. Poseidon Logistics, Gemini Properties, Liberty Surety. Tell me, Anna, have you ever looked at the board of directors for those companies? No? Why would I? They are just vendors. They are not vendors, Harrison said, his eyes hard as diamonds. They are subsidiaries, wholly owned subsidiaries of the Callaway Family Trust. The room went dead silent. The grandfather clock in the corner ticked loudly. Anna's mouth fell open. We own the ships? We own the ships, the warehouses, and the insurance bonds, Harrison confirmed. Adam pays lease fees to us. He pays insurance premiums to us. For 10 years I have kept the rates artificially low, practically zero, to help my son-in-law build his empire. I let him operate with a 90% discount on his operational costs because he was family. Harrison walked to the window, looking out at the grey sky. But as of 10 a.m. this morning, Harrison said, his voice dropping an octave, Adam Nicholas is no longer family. Anna stood up, her heart hammering against her ribs. The realization was hitting her like a physical blow. Adam's profit margins, his record-breaking quarters, his genius, it was all an illusion. It was subsidized by the very man he called a gardener. Papa, Anna whispered, if you pull the support. I'm not going to pull anything, Harrison said, reaching for the telephone on his desk. It was an old-fashioned rotary phone, heavy and black. I am simply going to adjust the rates to fair market value, effective immediately. He'll go bankrupt in a month, Anna said. A week, Harrison corrected. He's leveraged to the hilt to pay for that penthouse and his new lifestyle. He has no liquid reserves. Harrison picked up the receiver. He dialed a number from memory. Get me Ruthless, Harrison said into the phone. Get me the legal team. Yes, wake them up. I want eviction notices prepared for the New Jersey and California warehouses for breach of contract. And tell the Greeks to recall the fleet. I want those ships docked in Athens by Friday. He looked at Anna, and for the first time his expression softened into something resembling pity for the man he was about to destroy. He bragged about winning, Anna. He bragged about his power. Harrison hung up the phone. Now, he said, let's see how powerful he is when the ground beneath his feet disappears. Tuesday morning dawned with a brilliance that Adam Nicholas took personally. The sun bouncing off the glass skyscrapers of Midtown Manhattan felt like a spotlight arranged specifically for him. He arrived at the Nicholas Onyx Tower at 9:30 a.m., 30 minutes later than usual. He no longer needed to be punctual. Punctuality was for employees. Unpredictability was for kings. As he strode through the lobby, the security guard straightened, and the receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, who had been with the company for 2 years, quickly hid her sandwich under the desk. Good morning, Mr. Nicholas, she chirped, her voice trembling slightly. Adam didn't stop. He didn't even turn his head. He simply raised a single finger in acknowledgement, a gesture of dismissal that said, I see you, but you are part of the furniture. He stepped into the private elevator, keyed his code, and felt the smooth ascent. This was his domain. 30 floors of logistics experts, analysts, and sales sharks, all feeding the beast he claimed to have created. When the doors opened to the executive suite, the smell of fresh espresso and expensive leather greeted him. But today, there was a new scent, a heavy, cloying perfume. Chanel No. 5, applied too liberally. Sienna was sitting in his chair. She spun around as he entered, her legs crossed, a flute of champagne in her hand. She was beautiful in a sharp, predatory way, blonde, angular, and possessing eyes that assessed the value of everything they touched. "To the victor," she purred, holding the glass out to him. Adam dropped his briefcase on the sofa and loosened his tie. "It's 9:45, Sienna. A little early, even for us." "It's never too early to celebrate freedom," she said, standing up and walking over to him. She ran a manicured hand down his lapel. "I called the decorator. I told her I want the beige tones in the penthouse gone. I want black marble, gold accents, something that screams power." Adam chuckled, taking the champagne she offered. "Whatever you want, babe. The budget is open. Anna's alimony payments barely scratch the surface of my weekly interest accrual." He walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the ants scurrying on Fifth Avenue. He felt a profound sense of validation. For years, Anna had been the anchor dragging him down, always asking him to be home for dinner, asking him to be present, asking him to visit her boring father at that crumbling estate in Connecticut. She had wanted a partner. He had wanted an audience. "I fired Henderson today," Adam said casually, taking a sip. Sienna blinked. "The operations manager? The one who's been here since the start?" "He sent me an email asking about Anna," Adam said, his voice hardening. "Asked if she was doing okay. I don't pay my staff to have sympathies for my past. I pay them to execute my future. Security escorted him out 10 minutes ago." Sienna laughed, a bright, tinkling sound that lacked warmth. "You're ruthless, Adam. That's what I love about you." "Business is natural selection," Adam said, quoting a line he planned to use in his upcoming memoir. "The weak are culled so the strong can feed." He sat down at his desk, a massive slab of imported ebony, and opened his laptop. The screen flooded with green numbers. The stock was up 2%. The quarterly projections for the holiday shipping season were astronomical. "Adam," Sienna said, perched on the edge of the desk, "I was looking at the company expenses. Why do we pay so little for the warehouse leases? I mean, I'm not complaining. But the New Jersey facility, we're paying 1990s prices." Adam smirked. "That, my dear, is the art of the deal. I negotiated those leases years ago. The landlords are some old money trust fund idiots. They probably don't even know what the current market rate is. I locked them into a long-term auto-renewal with a fixed 1% increase. We are practically stealing that space." "And the ships?" "Same deal," Adam bragged, leaning back, hands behind his head. "Greek consortium. I charmed the director at a gala 10 years ago. They give me preferred rates because I'm a volume customer. It's not luck, Sienna. It's magnetism. People want to do business with Adam Nicholas." He truly believed it. He had rewritten history in his own mind so effectively that he had forgotten the dinners Harrison Calloway had arranged, the phone calls the old man had made, the quiet guarantees signed in the background. In Adam's version of the story, he was the sole architect of his fortune. The intercom buzzed. It was Sarah. "Mr. Nicholas?" "I said no calls, Sarah," Adam snapped. "I know, sir, but it's a courier, a priority courier. He says he needs a signature from you personally. He refuses to leave it with the front desk." Adam sighed, an exaggerated exhale of annoyance. "Fine, send him up. Let's get this over with." He looked at Sienna, probably a gift from a competitor, trying to court favor now that I'm a single man. They shared a knowing smile. They were the king and queen of the jungle, untouchable, rich and young. But when the elevator doors opened, it wasn't a gift basket. It was a man in a nondescript grey suit holding a heavy, cream-colored envelope. He didn't look like a delivery boy. He looked like an undertaker. "Adam Nicholas?" the man asked. "That's me." The man handed him the envelope. Served. He turned and left without another word. Adam frowned, looking at the envelope. There was no return address, only a wax seal. A seal he vaguely recognized. A lion holding a key. "What is it?" Sienna asked, trying to peek over his shoulder. "Probably just the final decree from the court," Adam said, slicing the envelope open with a gold letter opener. "Maybe Anna wants her grandmother's china back." He pulled out the document. It wasn't a court order. It was a letter, printed on heavy, watermarked cotton paper. Adam began to read. The smile faded from his face, replaced by a line of confusion between his brows. "To the Executive Office of Nicholas Onyx, reference, Commercial Lease Agreement, hash 449B, New Jersey Distribution Hub, and hash 450C, California Logistics Center. Pursuant to Section 14, Paragraph B of the lease agreement dated 2014, the lessor, Gemini Properties, hereby exercises its right to terminate the familial preferential rate clause, effective immediately due to the dissolution of the qualifying relationship. Effective 12 a.m. tomorrow, the monthly rent for the aforementioned properties will adjust to the fair market value, plus a standard 20% high-risk surcharge for unsecured tenants." Adam's eyes scanned down to the numbers. Previous monthly rent, $12,500. Adjusted monthly rent, $485,000. "What the hell?" Adam whispered. "What?" Sienna asked. "There must be a typo," Adam muttered, his heart skipping a beat. "They added 2 zeros. They want nearly $500,000 a month. That wipes out our entire operating margin for the East Coast." He grabbed his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he dialed the number for Gemini Properties. He expected to hear the confused voice of some secretary he could bully. Instead, the line clicked, and a crisp, automated voice spoke. "Thank you for calling Gemini Properties, a subsidiary of the Callaway Trust. Our offices are currently closed for a strategic audit. All inquiries regarding Nicholas Onyx accounts have been forwarded to our legal department. Callaway Trust." Adam froze. The phone felt like ice in his hand. "Anna," he breathed. "What about her?" Sienna asked, looking at the paper. "Adam, who is Gemini Properties? Why is the rent going up 4,000%? Before Adam could answer, the intercom buzzed again. This time, Sarah's voice wasn't just nervous. It was terrified. "Mr. Nicholas, Mr. Patterson is here. He says it's an emergency. He says the trucks have stopped." The door to the executive office flew open before Adam could even hit the release button. Patterson, the chief financial officer of Nicholas Onyx, stumbled in. Patterson was a man who lived by spreadsheets and actuarial tables. He was usually as calm as a coma, but today his face was the color of curdled milk, and sweat was beading on his bald head. He was clutching a tablet so hard his knuckles were white. "Adam," Patterson gasped, ignoring Sienna completely. "We have a situation." "I know about the rent, Patterson," Adam snapped, trying to regain control of the room. He stood up, buttoning his jacket, projecting an air of authority he didn't feel. "It's a clerical error, or a vindictive move by Anna's family. I'll have legal squash it by lunch. Don't hyperventilate." "It's not the rent," Patterson said, his voice cracking. "It's the insurance. Liberty Surety." Adam paused. "What about them?" "They revoked our bonding," Patterson said. 10 minutes ago, I got a fax. They cited material change in risk assessment. They pulled the interstate transit bonds, Adam." Adam stared at him, his brain struggling to process the implications. In the logistics world, the bond was the blood. Without a federal surety bond, a truck wasn't a commercial vehicle. It was just a heavy object on wheels. It was illegal to cross state lines. It was illegal to carry third-party cargo. "Revoked!" Adam shouted. "They can't just revoke. We've never missed a premium payment." "They didn't just revoke it," Patterson continued, swiping on his tablet and thrusting it toward Adam. "They flagged our account in the national database. Adam, the state troopers in Ohio just pulled over our convoy of electronics. 12 trucks. They've been impounded." Impounded? Adam felt the room spin. "That cargo is worth $6 million. It's the holiday launch for TechSource. If that delivery is late, we trigger the penalty clauses." It gets worse, Patterson whispered. Oh, how could it possibly get worse? Sienna screeched from the sofa. Adam, fix this! Shut up, Sienna! Adam roared, losing his composure for the first time. He turned back to Patterson. Tell me. I tried to call our rep at Liberty, Patterson said. I couldn't get through, so I called the underwriters in London. They told me that our previous policy, the one we've had for a decade, was a subsidized courtesy policy, guaranteed by a third-party guarantor. What guarantor? Adam demanded, though a sick feeling was already pooling in his stomach. The Calloway Family Trust, Patterson said. Apparently, Anna's father has been personally underwriting our liability for 10 years. He removed the guarantee this morning at 9 a.m. Adam sank back into his chair. The leather squeaked, a sound that seemed deafening in the silent room. Harrison. The old man in the flannel shirt. The man Adam had mocked at Thanksgiving for driving a 1998 Ford F-150. He was the guarantor. This is impossible, Adam muttered. Harrison is a gardener. He lives in a drafty old house. He doesn't have this kind of pull. Adam, Patterson said, his voice grave. I did a background search on the Calloway Trust while I was running up here. We always assumed they were just Connecticut comfortable. We were wrong. They own Liberty Surety. They own the building we are sitting in right now. Well, the holding company that owns the REIT that owns the building. Adam looked around the office. The walls suddenly felt very thin. He's squeezing us, Adam said, his voice low and dangerous. He's trying to scare me. It's a power play. He wants me to crawl back and apologize to his precious daughter. Adam slammed his fist on the desk. Well, I won't do it. We don't need them. Patterson, get me a new insurer. Get me a new bonding agent. I don't care what it costs. Get the trucks moving. Patterson didn't move. He looked down at his shoes. I tried, Adam, Patterson said softly. I called AIG. I called Travelers. I called Lloyd's. And? We are uninsurable. What do you mean, uninsurable? Adam stood up again, his face flushing red. We are Nicholas Onyx. We are the market leaders. We are a logistics company with 0 assets, Patterson corrected him brutally. We don't own our buildings. We don't own our ships. And as of this morning, our liquidity is questionable because the rent hike triggered a freeze from our credit line bank. Patterson looked Adam in the eye. The other insurers look at our balance sheet, without the Calloway subsidies, and they see a corpse. They see a company that has been operating at a massive loss for years, only kept alive by an invisible hand. Now that the hand is gone, no one will touch us. The phone on Adam's desk began to ring. It was a shrill, old-fashioned ringtone he hadn't heard before. It wasn't the internal line. It was the private, direct line that only a handful of people had. Adam stared at it. He knew who it was. He picked up the receiver slowly, bringing it to his ear. Nicholas, he said, his voice raspy. There was a pause on the other end. Then a voice that sounded like gravel grinding against steel. Good morning, Adam, Harrison Calloway said. I trust the view from the top is still to your liking? You old bastard, Adam hissed. You think you can destroy me? I built this company, me. You built a sandcastle in my sandbox, Harrison replied calmly. And now the tide is coming in. I'll sue you, Adam threatened. Tortious interference, breach of good faith. I'll bury you in legal fees. You have no money for legal fees, Adam, Harrison said. Arthur Claiborne requires a retainer, doesn't he? Check your corporate operating account. Adam gestured frantically to Patterson to check the bank accounts on the tablet. Patterson tapped the screen, refreshed the page, and then gasped. He turned the screen to Adam. Account status, frozen. Reason, creditor injunction. Gemini Properties. You froze my accounts, Adam whispered into the phone. I am merely a landlord protecting his interests against a tenant who cannot pay the new rent, Harrison said pleasantly. It's just business, Adam. Isn't that what you told Anna? Business requires a shark? "What do you want?" Adam demanded. "I want you to look out your window," Harrison said. "What?" "Look out the window, Adam, toward the harbor." Adam walked to the window, phone pressed to his ear. From his high vantage point, he could see the Hudson River and the New York harbor in the distance. "Do you see the Onyx Queen?" Harrison asked. "Your flagship vessel, the one carrying the automotive parts for Detroit." Adam squinted. He saw the massive container ship. It was usually moving toward the docks in Newark, but it wasn't moving toward the docks, it was turning around. "That ship is under the flag of Poseidon Logistics," Harrison said. "I have ordered the fleet to divert to Halifax. The cargo will be impounded until all backdated market rate lease adjustments are paid in full. That is roughly $40 million. "You can't do that!" Adam screamed. "That cargo belongs to General Motors. They'll kill me." "Then I suggest you start swimming," Harrison said. "You have 24 hours to vacate the premises, Adam. After that, I'm sending the dogs, and unlike you, I don't bark." The line went dead. Adam stood by the window, the dial tone buzzing in his ear. Below him, the city moved on, oblivious, but up here, in the glass tower he thought he owned, the air was suddenly very thin, and it was getting harder and harder to breathe. Sienna walked up behind him, her voice trembling. "Adam, my credit card just got declined for the decorator." Adam dropped the phone. It hit the floor with a hollow clatter. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of Patterson quietly closing his laptop and backing out of the room, leaving the captain to go down with his ship alone. The silence in the executive suite of Nicholas Onyx was absolute, a stark contrast to the chaos unraveling on the streets below. It was 3 p.m. 5 hours had passed since Harrison Calloway's phone call. Adam Nicholas sat on the floor of his office. He had abandoned the ebony desk. It felt too large, too commanding for a man who suddenly felt very small. His tie was on the floor. His jacket was draped over a chair. He was surrounded by a graveyard of smartphones. His personal cell, his work cell, and 2 burner phones he kept for sensitive negotiations. He had spent the last 3 hours dialing every favor he had ever banked. He called Carter Banks, a hedge fund manager who had parted on Adam's yacht in Ibiza 2 weeks ago. Carter had laughed, a short, sharp sound. "Adam, old buddy, I heard the rumor. Calloway pulled the rug. Look, I can't be seen with you. My liquidity is tied up. Good luck, though." Click. He called Senator Miller, whose re-election campaign Adam had illegally donated to, through a shell corporation. The senator's aide answered. "The senator is unavailable, and for the record, Mr. Nicholas, please do not contact this office again. We are scrubbing the donor list." Click. He even called his own father, a retired car dealership owner in Florida, whom Adam hadn't visited in 3 years. "I told you, boy," his father had rasped. "You fly too high. The sun melts the wax. I got nothing for you. You spent your inheritance on that damn penthouse." Adam looked up as the door to the suite opened. He expected the police. He expected federal agents. Instead, he saw Sienna. She was struggling with 2 large Louis Vuitton suitcases. She wasn't wearing the diamond earrings he gave her last week. She was wearing a tracksuit and sunglasses, looking like a celebrity trying to avoid paparazzi. "Going somewhere?" Adam asked, his voice hoarse. Sienna didn't look at him. She marched to the wet bar, grabbed a bottle of Cristal, and shoved it into her purse. "I'm going to the 4 Seasons," she said, her voice devoid of the cooing affection she had used that morning. "And then I'm flying to Miami. I met a promoter there last year. He has a boat." "You're leaving?" Adam let out a dry, incredulous laugh. "We hit a bump in the road, Sienna. A bump. I'm Adam Nicholas. I'll fix this. I always fix this." Sienna stopped at the door. She finally turned to look at him, pushing her sunglasses up. Her eyes were cold, calculating, and terrifyingly clear. "Adam," she said, "you don't get it. You were never the money. You were the front. Everyone in town knew it except you. We tolerated your arrogance because you came with the Calloway seal of approval. Without Harrison backing you, you're just a guy in a nice suit with a negative net worth. "I made you," Adam spat, standing up. "I took you from the mailroom." "And I'm taking myself back out," she said. "Oh, and Adam, I charged the flight to your personal Amex. Consider it a severance package." The door slammed. Adam was alone. Truly alone. He walked to the window. The sun was beginning to set, casting long, bloody shadows across Manhattan. He needed a drink. He poured a scotch, his hand shaking so badly the liquor splashed onto the carpet. He needed a plan. He needed to think like the shark he claimed to be. Assets, he thought. Liquidity. He had the penthouse. It was worth $15 million. He could sell it, pay off the immediate debts, and restart. He grabbed the landline and dialed his personal banker, a Chase private client. "This is Nicholas. I want to liquidate the Tribeca property. Put it on the market tonight. Fire sale prices. I need cash by morning." There was a long pause on the line. "Mr. Nicholas," the banker said, his voice dropping to a whisper. I can't do that." "Why not? It's my apartment." "Sir, have you checked the title deed recently?" "Of course I haven't checked the deed. I bought it 3 years ago." "Sir," the banker continued, "the mortgage for the penthouse was structured as a commercial loan tied to the performance of Nicholas Onyx. It was a cross-collateralization agreement." Adam's blood ran cold. He remembered the meeting. He remembered Arthur Claiborne, his lawyer, telling him it was a smart tax move to tie the house to the business expenses, because the company's credit rating has been downgraded to junk status as of 2 p.m. today, the banker explained. The bank has exercised the acceleration clause. The full mortgage is due immediately. The property has been seized. "Seized?" Adam whispered. "The locks are being changed as we speak, sir. Security is in the lobby of your building. You can't go home tonight." Adam dropped the phone. He had no home. He had no company. He had no girlfriend. He had no money. He looked around the office. This was all he had left. This room. He sat back down in his leather chair, the one he had preened in this morning. He curled his hands into fists. "Harrison," he growled, the name tasting like bile. "You think you've won? You think you can just erase me?" He opened his laptop. He still had one card to play. The nuclear option. If he couldn't have the company, no one would. He navigated to the server controls. He had administrative access. He could delete the customer databases. He could wipe the routing algorithms. He could burn Nicholas Onyx to the ground digitally, leaving Harrison with nothing but empty trucks and confused drivers. "Let's see how you like ashes, old man," Adam muttered, his finger hovering over the execute command for a system-wide purge. He pressed enter. A red box popped up on the screen. "Access denied. Administrative privileges revoked. User G_ Nicholas is locked out." Adam stared at the screen. He typed his password again. Access denied. Then a new window opened. A chat window. System admin. "Hello, Adam." Adam froze. He typed back. "Adam, who is this?" "System admin. You really should have read the IT protocols, Adam. The servers aren't hosted on site. They are cloud-hosted." "Adam, by who?" "System admin. By Ether Data Services." Adam didn't need to ask. He knew. Ether, another subsidiary, another tentacle of the Callaway beast. "System admin. Harrison prefers not to use the delete key. He prefers the archive function. Pack your box, Adam. The night cleaners are coming." Adam stared at the blinking cursor. He didn't scream. He didn't throw the laptop. He simply slumped forward, his forehead resting on the cool mahogany as the last lights of the city flickered on outside, illuminating a kingdom that had locked its gates against him. Wednesday morning was grey and weeping with rain. It was the kind of weather that made New York look like a black-and-white photograph. Adam Nicholas had slept on the sofa in his office. He hadn't shaved. His suit was wrinkled. He smelled of stale scotch and fear. At 8 a.m., the elevator doors opened. Adam sat up, expecting the police. It was Sarah, the receptionist. She stopped in the doorway, holding a tray of coffee. She looked at him. The great Adam Nicholas, looking like a Vardam in a bespoke suit, with a mixture of pity and embarrassment. "Mr. Nicholas," she said softly, "the board is here." Adam blinked, rubbing his eyes. "The board? We don't have a scheduled meeting until next month." "They called an emergency session," Sarah said. "They are in the main conference room. They're waiting for you." Adam stood up. Adrenaline spiked through his exhausted system. This was it. The board. He could charm them. He could spin this. He knew these men. He had played golf with them. He had made them rich. "Coffee, Sarah," he barked, finding a shred of his old arrogance. "And get me a fresh tie from the closet." 10 minutes later, Adam Nicholas walked into the conference room. He had splashed water on his face and straightened his spine. He walked in like he owned the place. The long, polished table was full. 12 men and women in dark suits sat in silence. These were the minority shareholders, the representatives of the pension funds that invested in Nicholas Onyx. At the head of the table, Adam's seat was empty. "Gentlemen, ladies," Adam boomed, walking toward his chair. "I apologize for the impromptu nature of this meeting. We have had a few hiccups with our vendors, standard negotiation tactics that got out of hand. I assure you I have the situation under control." He reached for his chair. "Sit down, Adam," a voice said. It wasn't one of the board members. It came from the corner of the room, from a leather armchair that had been turned away from the table. The chair swiveled. Harrison Calloway sat there. He was wearing a 3-piece tweed suit that cost more than Adam's car. He looked rested, calm, and utterly implacable. Next to him sat Anna. Adam stopped. He stared at his ex-wife. She was transformed. Gone was the frizzy hair and the beige trench coat. She was wearing a tailored navy power suit that accentuated her figure. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek, severe ponytail. She wore no jewelry except for a simple pair of pearl earrings that Adam knew had belonged to her great-grandmother. She didn't look quaint. She looked royal. "What are you doing here?" Adam sneered, pointing a finger at Harrison. "This is a closed meeting for shareholders. Security." "I am a shareholder, Adam," Harrison said, tossing a thick file onto the table. "As of this morning, the Calloway Trust has purchased the outstanding debt of Nicholas Onyx from your creditors. We have converted that debt into equity. We now own 51% of the voting stock." Adam looked at the board members. They refused to meet his eyes. "You sold me out?" Adam whispered to the man on his right, a banker named Phillips. "It was a hostile takeover, Adam," Phillips muttered. "We had no choice. The stock was in free fall. They offered a buyout at 10 cents on the dollar to save the company from bankruptcy." 10 cents? Adam felt sick. "The stock was trading at $40 yesterday." "Yesterday is a long time ago," Anna spoke. Her voice was clear, resonant, and strong. Adam turned to her. "And what are you doing here, Anna? Here to gloat? You don't know anything about business. You're a housewife." Anna stood up. She placed her hands flat on the table. "I'm the new CAO, Adam," she said. The room went silent. Adam stared at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. "You?" He laughed, a desperate, high-pitched sound. "You? You can't run a logistics company. You don't know the first thing about supply chains. You don't know the software." Anna smiled. It was a cold, professional smile. "The software?" she asked. "You mean Onyx OS? The routing algorithm that optimizes the fuel efficiency of the fleet?" "Yes, my proprietary code." "Adam," Anna said, shaking her head, "do you remember when you were starting out? You were busy trying to sell sales pitches. Who sat up at night coding the beta version of the tracker? Who designed the logic gates for the warehouse sorting?" Adam paused. He had a vague memory of Anna typing on her laptop at the kitchen table while he watched football. "I did," Anna said. "And do you remember the intellectual property assignment agreement you made all employees sign? The one that says any invention created by an employee belongs to the company?" "Of course," Adam said. "Ironclad." "I never signed one," Anna said softly. "I was never an employee, Adam. I was your wife. I did that work pro bono, which means—" She pulled a document from her briefcase. "I own the copyright to the source code, personally. The Callaway Trust has licensed it to Nicholas Onyx, but the license is revocable if the CEO is incompetent." She looked at him with eyes that held 10 years of suppressed brilliance. "You didn't build this, Adam. You sold it. I built it. Papa funded it. You were just the mascot." Harrison stood up. He checked his pocket watch. "The vote has already been cast, Adam," Harrison said. "You have been removed as CEO for cause, gross negligence, breach of fiduciary duty, and corporate malfeasance." "You can't do this!" Adam screamed, his composure finally shattering. "I am Nicholas Onyx. My name is on the building." "Actually," Harrison said, walking to the window and pulling back the blinds. "About that." Adam looked out. Below, on the plaza, a crane was working. It was dismantling the massive steel letters of the sign. Nicholas was already gone. Onyx remained. "We're rebranding," Harrison said. "Going back to the family roots. Onyx Logistics has a nice ring to it, don't you think?" 2 security guards entered the room. They weren't the usual lobby guards. These were private contractors, big men with serious faces. "Mr. Nicholas," one of them said, "please hand over your access badge and your company phone." "No," Adam said, backing away. "This is mine. You can't take this from me." "Adam," Anna said. Her voice wasn't angry anymore. It was just tired. "Stop. Just stop. Maintain some dignity. Walk out on your own 2 feet before they drag you out." Adam looked at her. He looked for the weakness, the love, the neediness he had exploited for a decade. He found none of it. He saw only a woman who had outgrown him. He reached into his pocket. He pulled out the badge. He threw it on the table. It slid across the polished wood and stopped in front of Anna. "You'll fail," Adam spat. "Without me, this place dies." "We'll take our chances," Anna said, picking up the badge and dropping it into the trash bin. Adam turned and walked towards the door. The walk felt miles long. He could feel the eyes of the board members burning into his back. He could feel the weight of his failure pressing down on his shoulders. He stepped into the elevator. The doors began to close. Through the narrowing gap, he saw Anna sit down at the head of the table. He saw Harrison put a hand on her shoulder. He saw the board members lean in, ready to listen to her. The doors shut. Adam Nicholas rode the elevator down to the lobby. When the doors opened, he walked out into the rain. He had no umbrella. He had no car waiting. He stood on the sidewalk, getting soaked to the bone as the pedestrians walked around him, annoyed by the man blocking the flow of traffic. He looked up at the building one last time. The crane was lowering the S. He was a ghost in a city he thought he ruled, and for the first time in his life, Adam Nicholas had absolutely no idea what to do next. 6 months later, the winter slush in Queens was a far cry from the pristine snow of Aspen. Adam Nicholas sat in a cramped cubicle at Miller Industrial Supply, a third-tier fencing distributor. His bespoke Italian suits had been sold to a consignment shop to pay the deposit on a studio apartment that smelled faintly of boiled cabbage. He wasn't the CEO. He wasn't a visionary. He was a junior sales associate, commission only. It was lunch hour. Adam sat alone in a diner down the street, nursing a lukewarm coffee. He had just spent 3 hours cold-calling construction managers who hung up on him. The irony wasn't lost on him. 20 years ago, Anna had supported him while he did this exact job. Now, he was doing it again. But this time, there was no warm dinner waiting for him. No soft voice telling him he could do it. He reached for the discarded copy of the Wall Street Journal left by a previous patron. He intended to check the sports section, but the photo on the front of the business section stopped his heart. Onyx Logistics posts record Q4 earnings under new leadership. The photo showed Anna. She looked radiant, standing on the deck of a massive container ship, one of the ships Adam had thought he controlled. Next to her was Harrison, looking proud but stoic. Adam read the article, his eyes stinging. Critics doubted whether Anna Calloway, previously a silent partner, could steer the massive logistics giant after the tumultuous exit of former CEO Adam Nicholas. But Calloway has not only stabilized the company, she has revolutionized it. By integrating her own proprietary software and leveraging the family's deep-rooted asset base, Onyx Logistics has reduced overhead by 30%. "We stripped away the ego," Calloway is quoted as saying, "and we focused on the foundation." The article went on to mention that Harrison Calloway had recently donated $10 million to a legal aid fund for divorced women who had been financially bullied by their spouses. Adam lowered the paper. The waitress came by with the pot of coffee. "Warm it up for you, hun?" she asked. Adam looked at her. He looked at his cheap watch. He looked at the reflection of a middle-aged man with graying temples and a frayed collar in the window. "Yeah," Adam whispered. "Warm it up." He realized then, with a clarity that cut deeper than any insult, that he hadn't just lost the money. He hadn't just lost the status. He had lost the only people in the world who had actually loved him for him, not for what he could give them. He had traded a diamond for a piece of glass because the glass sparkled a little brighter in the moment. His phone buzzed. It was his manager, a 25-year-old kid named Kyle. "Adam, get back here. You're behind on your quota. If you don't close the Johnson account by Friday, you're out." "I'm coming, Kyle," Adam said. He left a $1 tip, all he could afford, and walked out into the cold, grey afternoon. He buttoned his coat against the wind, just another face in the crowd, a shark that had forgotten how to swim, finally learning that in the deep ocean, it's the quiet currents that control the tide. And that is the story of Adam Nicholas, a man who thought he was a king, only to find out he was just the jester in someone else's court. Adam's downfall wasn't just about money or business. It was about character. He mistook kindness for weakness and silence for submission. He forgot that the loudest person in the room is rarely the most powerful. Harrison Calloway didn't destroy Adam because he was angry. He destroyed him to protect his daughter, proving that real power doesn't need to brag. It just needs to wait for the right moment to strike. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever met an Adam in your real life? Someone who took all the credit until the real owner of the power stepped in? Let me know your stories in the comments below. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of karma and justice, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a story. We have a massive revenge saga coming up next week that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching. And remember, be careful who you step on, because you never know who owns the ground.